All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kim Fuller. I am founder and CEO of Phil, a company dedicated to helping nonprofits do more good in the world. And our clients are organizations who are focused on creating positive systemic change in mostly underrepresented communities. And I'm looking forward to sharing some tips that can help you improve your year-end ask, no matter how early or late you might be in the process. So today I'm on unceded Indigenous lands and recognize that the Ginikihaga Nation is the custodians of the lands and the waters on which I live, work, and play in Montreal, Quebec. Feel free to share where you are located in the chat. I always love to see where folks are coming from, and it's an opportunity for us to learn more about the lands that we inhabit. And if you know their Indigenous names, if you don't, you can look them up on a really cool tool called native-land.ca. So you can share that the next time you introduce yourself. So I'll be taking some questions at the end of the presentation, and we'll save some time for chatting with the participants to learn from your different experiences. If you're too shy to ask your question live at the end, you can always use the chat, and we'll be monitoring that, and we'll include those questions at the end. And I'm sure that you're all used to the Zoom etiquette by now, but please make sure your microphones are turned off until the question period. And when you're called upon, please remember to turn them back on. Si vous avez des questions en français, n'hésitez pas. My French is definitely better than my Spanish, pero ¿qué puedo hacer? So yeah, let's get going. Thanks for being here today. All right, so you know why you're here. I know why you're here. And let's see what we can do to alleviate some of the stress that comes with the year-end ask. There's always a tremendous amount of pressure. There's also a tremendous amount of potential that comes with this exercise that we do in fundraising. First thing, don't panic, even if you are starting a little bit late, and that might be why you're here with us today, or you're just looking to, sharpen your skills, learn a little bit of extra tips. We're going to review some basics. We're going to look at how to pick a theme and signatories for you. We're also going to be looking at matching gifts as a really great opportunity for year-end asks, as well as what you should be looking at to improve your direct mail experience, but also all the things that can happen online, so not relating directly to the mail. And we'll also be looking at some last-minute tips for some quick wins that you can have towards the end of the year. All right, so we all know how critical the end of the year fundraising is, but these numbers really outline how important it is to take advantage of a time of year when people are generally more generous. And while donor numbers may be dropping, and that's what we're seeing, in the sector, the amounts that the donors are giving is on the rise. So that is encouraging. But I mean, it's pretty astounding, that so many of these donations are happening like right in the last few days. And you really want to, capitalize on that. And it blows my mind that 12% of all the giving happens in the last 3 days of the year. So people are thinking about their tax receipt incentives. Don't be shy to mention that is, a really good reason to give at the end of the year. Not everybody is familiar with the fact that, you can get a receipt for charitable giving. So it warrants being, reminded from time to time, and mix it into your communications. So we'll look at some basics. You don't have to spend months agonizing over setting a goal. Network for Good had a really good blog post on this a while ago, and they said, just set aside an hour of uninterrupted time with your team. Try to brainstorm your goals for about 15 minutes and then decide which ones you'll choose. And then, discuss as a team, how much money do you want to raise with your year-end campaign? Do you want to set goals of like how many new donors you want to attract or how many recurring donors you want? And then you spend about the next 20 minutes or so creating a timeline with the different actions that you want to take. And you spend the last 15 minutes really looking at maybe some of the more specific KPIs or some target numbers of donors at various amounts. You really have to kind of know your donor database in order to be able to set realistic or ambitious objectives. So you really want to start with your database. And then you finish up that 1 hour meeting with, agreeing on the different assignments that you're giving to the people on the team or whoever you're working with externally for the project, and try to, pump them up with something motivational, and then you get rolling. So you really don't have to agonize over this for, a really long time. Just a really good 1 hour, well-structured meeting can really yield a lot of great things can come out of that meeting. So I mentioned knowing your database and segmenting your audience is one of the most important things. Anybody who's worked with Phil on these year-end campaigns knows that we really, we need our clients to be working with a clean, up-to-date database. If you're not, and you need to kind of muddle your way through this year-end ask with a messy database, that's fine. That might be your reality, but please make it a priority for January, as soon as you're back from Christmas break, to just dive deep and clean that up, because it really will make all the difference for your future campaigns. So in the meantime, you want to identify the top donors, either by the amount or the frequency, and you want to create segments, for those different types of donors, also for the different types of people that interact with you. The worst thing to have is sending a long-standing volunteer a very generic letter where you're explaining your mission and things like that, and they're like, "Come on, I've been involved in your organization for years. Why are you talking to me like a new donor?" Right? So just those little things around language and segmenting out your groups is really important. You should also look at creating a special list for your lapsed donors, and you want to segment them out with a special note that says that you understand that they haven't been able to give recently, but you'd love to have them back. So maybe you offer them, remind them how easy monthly giving is, that it's an affordable way to support your cause. We always make suggestions like, hey, for the cost of 1 latte a week, you could help a child access our after-school programming that will keep them off the streets for good, or something to that effect. Right? Like, you just need to remind people how easy it is to give, right? And so if they have shied away from giving to your organization, it might be because of financial troubles that they've come across, and they might be a little shy about giving again. So monthly giving is a really nice way to ease them back into giving to your organization. And we also know that monthly donors are the biggest annual contributors after major donors, giving 7 times more than one-time donors. So I know there's been a lot of talk around monthly giving in the not-for-profit space recently, and there's a really good reason for it, is because once you get those monthly donors, they really end up giving more over time. So like I mentioned, please segment out your volunteers, your staff, your past board members. If you only do one special segment, please make it that one. There's nothing worse than, like I said, receiving a generic ask. I've had it happen to me. And so I speak from personal experience when I say that this is really important to do. You don't have to change the whole letter. You just need to switch up the beginning and the closing, like the opening and the closing paragraphs, so that you take into consideration their experience. So, my letter for me as a volunteer might say, hey, Kim, as a longtime volunteer, that our mission is to support people experiencing homelessness, for example. That's our #1 priority. We're writing to you today to tell you about James, and then you go into your storytelling, right? So just that one little acknowledgement that says, who we are, we know who you are, and this is our ask for the end of the year. So for the closing paragraph, you want to reiterate that the volunteer work that they do has been really valuable, but that a monetary gift will go a long way to supporting the work. And there are other statistics that show us that volunteers are, far more likely to give financially as well as with their time. And many organizations are too shy to ask because they're like, oh no, they already give to, so much to us with their time. We don't dare ask them for money. But statistically, they are the ones who will be giving. So go for it, ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. So that's it's worth keeping in mind. So for choosing the signatory and theme, choosing a central theme helps you focus and create more effective messaging around your year-end campaign. Your theme might center on an upcoming project. It might be a new program, could be a matching gift, Giving Tuesday, or any other ideas. You want to be creative and let your imagination lead the way. Having a unifying theme also makes it easier for your donors to make a connection to your organization and to your work. And it'll provide them with a clear reason to get out their credit card or their checkbook to donate. The more specific you are, the more they'll be able to understand what you're aiming for, and they'll want to be part of that. And the more personal you can make your campaign, the more attractive it will be for donors to engage. So you want to try and share exactly who will be helped by the campaign. So you include some photos, maybe a quote or an impact story of somebody in your community. And it's always good to get like a healthy balance between the facts and the figures to really drive home the importance of why you're raising the money. But then, you know, the faces bring those statistics to life. So you want to sprinkle, you know, your photos, your quotes and stories well beyond the letter, which we'll get to in a minute. But you also want to consider what you're putting in your emails, your social media posts, and your online giving page. So it doesn't all have to get jammed into one letter. You know, remember that you've got all these other communication tools available to you, and you want to really use bits and pieces of the campaign on the different platforms as you plan things out. So the letter is one thing, but then there's a lot of other ways that you can share some other little snippets, testimonials, pictures, etc., through your other tools. So I mentioned the magic of matching gift. This is something that really makes a difference when you're trying to encourage people, especially first-time donors. This can be a really great way to get people encouraged. Also, if you're looking to reach a younger demographic, you know, a lot of young people don't have a lot of money to give, and they're sometimes shy, like thinking, oh, what's my $20 going to give, or what's my $30 going to give? Well, when they know that that's going to be doubled, or even if they're giving a $50 donation and that turns into 100, then they feel their money's going a lot further. And so, you know, you can reach out to a major donor that you already have a relationship with. And if you know that they give to you on a pretty regular basis, you can ask them if they would give more that year so that you can activate this matching gift program, or you can just ask if you can repurpose part of their gift as the year-end match. And that is really motivating. 1 in 3 donors is more likely to increase their gift amount if a match is offered. So if you're able to secure a matching gift, it's really a major win. You can think about corporate donors or sponsors who care about your cause. You know, companies right now are looking, the ones who did weather the pandemic, you know, and are feeling in a healthy financial place, so they're looking to make more impact in their communities, and they're not usually sure who they can reach out to, and they don't want anything too complicated. So being able to offer a matching gift program that it's like a time-bound thing with a specific amount, and that the corporate sponsor can get some visibility out of it, you know, because you can not only mention them in the letter, but then on your social media and in your email marketing, then they'll get some, you know, important visibility with that. And it's definitely a win-win for everybody in that case. And, you know, your big donors have influence, right? So when you have that relationship with a major donor and you can speak to them and say, you know, it is wonderful that you give us all this money, but what you can give us to take the mission forward even further is using your influence. And I've heard a lot of grant making organizations recognize that they have this influence, and many of them are willing to use that influence to help encourage more generosity. So try to have a conversation around some big donors who are already involved in your cause, and you'll see that you might be able to pull together a really great idea for a matching gift campaign. In terms of tips for your direct mail letters, you always can consider adding a recent article on the cause or an issue that you're trying to address, so that the donors can see that it's topical and relevant. We often, when we think of very traditional old school letters, we get them 10 times a day and they're all very predictable, right? But when there's a little extra something in there, and it doesn't have to be a very long article, it doesn't have to be super formatted or whatever, it can just kind of be added in. People will take notice and they'll think about it, they'll talk about it, and it can really have a positive effect on your campaign. The other thing that you want to do in your letter is to draw attention to what you've achieved over the year to show that your donors have had an impact. So this is, going to the segment that have given to you in the past. This is not an annual report, so don't put too much in the letter, but maybe just a highlight of what you've achieved or something that was really exceptional that year. It will really go a long way for encouraging your donors to give again. And to new donors, it shows that you actually do good things with the money that's invested and entrusted in your organization. So that's a good place to start as well. We've seen a resurgence of popularity with QR codes since the pandemic. So that's been a pleasant surprise. And we're seeing them more and more being used in fundraising. So you can have, a QR code on your physical letter that people can scan to just jump them right to a web page to give online. And there's all sorts of these free tools that allow you to create QR codes now, and you can add these fun little boxes that say scan me or give online. People are a lot more ecologically focused these days. They don't necessarily want to use more paper. So this is a really great way to take a traditional donor who may have written a check in the past to start getting them used to giving online with ease. That being said, the online experience for giving to your organization has to be polished and be good as well. So you want to make sure that experience is working well as well. In terms of the PS, there's no doubt that it works. 90% of people read the PS before they read anything else, which is pretty amazing. So what you want to be doing there is putting the main reason for giving and the ask is in the PS. You want to write 1 or 2 strong sentences that summarizes the reason for giving. And, a powerful postscript will have a huge impact on the reader. There's a gentleman by the name of Mal Warwick, who's a legendary direct mail fundraiser. And he had another interesting idea for how to use the PS, which is you can kind of use it as a bit of a teaser, like to disclose some kind of benefit or intriguing fact that's not disclosed in the rest of the letter. And he really encourages nonprofits to make it irresistibly interesting. So really you could spend some time thinking about how you want to make your PS, more impactful. I could give you a couple of examples. If we say, PS, remember your gift of just $100 will provide a hot supper every day for a month. Please give today. So in that sense, you're really explaining what the donor is really giving for when you give that money. You can also do a PS like saying, if you're able to organize your database to have a custom field, you can say your last gift was $50. If you could match it again or even increase it, we would be very grateful. So that's where you're trying to do a little bit of an upsell in the PS. Or you could say, I've included with this letter an article about our response to the recent issues in domestic violence since the beginning of the pandemic. Your support right now is critical to our work in this area. So that goes back to what I was just saying about, putting the relevance, the emphasis on relevance of how, timely the work that you're doing is important for your community. So you could also get a little bit more personal with the PS, and say, PS, if a loved one or a friend of yours is affected by cancer, please call, whatever hotline number you have. Because of your financial support, we're able to offer advice and support those in need. So that's really putting the PS is more on the emphasis of your services. And you can also do a PS like, did you know? Do you know that our scholarships are supported entirely by charitable donations? Our organization doesn't receive any government funding. Please give generously to our scholarship fund, for example. So, that's an opportunity to point out perhaps where we live here in Canada, in Quebec, we definitely have this expectation that government supports all things charitable. So if your organization doesn't actually receive any government funding, that little PS on the letter is a really great opportunity for you to remind people that you really depend on their generosity. And so, you can throw that in as your PS. So regardless of how you want to use your PS, you should always have some kind of call to action in it, something that is of value to the reader. And that's really what, the letter is all about. So moving along, we'll talk about the envelopes. So I'm not 100%, keen on the, for ecological reasons, the recommendation of using a larger envelope to send your mail, but it does stand out from the rest. So I have a few examples here, and you can see that, a typical size is a number 10 envelope. This is an example of a bigger one. You can see that it's quite a bit bigger, and it will stand out in a pile of mail that this one, is larger, and so it catches people's eye. If you don't want to go larger, oops, sorry.
And we can't see the envelopes.
I was holding it up to the screen. Do you want me to stop my screen share so you can see it for a sec? Here we go. How's that? All right. Can you see me better now? So this is an oversized, and that would be a regular size. Does that help you see the difference? So one is a regular number 10 envelope, and that one's an oversized one. So think of like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper folded in half would fit in this size one, and a regular piece of paper folded in 3 would fit in this one. So while I have you, on the screen here, I'll also mention that, having a pop of color is a good way to go. So in this example here, you can see, I'm trying to see myself while I'm looking at, there we go. I'm blocking my camera, but hopefully you can see this just has a nice little pop of color. In this case, they use the whole back is full of yellow, and there's a pop there. These are still two color printing jobs, but it really makes a difference when you're getting it in the mail. And this is a really good example of how you can use a QR code on the return envelope. And so that's another really great tip for getting people to move towards online giving, right? And that's another use. So you can have your QR code in the letter, of course, like we mentioned earlier, but you can also put it on your number 9 return envelope. And so you can influence donor habits and convert them to online giving. And you want to make sure that your QR code leads to a unique page, so you can track the results of the clicks that are coming through. And as a backup, you could have a, how did you hear about us drop down in the menu page of the donation page, so you can keep track of whether people actually came to the online version because they received something in the mail. So that's also a great way to keep track of how, these QR codes are converting your donors. On the example that I was just showing, next to the QR code, having a handwritten font that's easy to read can be a good way to just make it a little bit more personal, even though we know it's mass produced, it's mass printed, but just that little handwritten font can also help to make it a little bit more personal. If you have a small database, you could consider even asking your volunteers to handwrite the address on the carrier envelopes as an extra special touch. A lot of volunteers are looking for ways to contribute to causes. Not a lot of organizations right now have tasks to give their volunteers because we've had, to go through the pandemic and limit our in-person activities. So, giving a volunteer some, just the opportunity to write a few handwritten things is also a great way to add a personal touch. And there are even now some direct mail printing services that can create a handwritten look for the larger mailings. And I've seen this done by some larger hospital foundations and things like that. And it's pretty cool that you can get that kind of personal feeling, even mass produced. The technology's come quite far away in the last few years. So you can look into that if you're curious. So in terms of going beyond just the direct mail piece, there's a number of elements that you want to think about when you're planning a successful year-end ask. We have a little checklist here on the right that are the must-haves if you can manage it, if you have the team or can outsource it to a team. You want to consider your email blasts. So one of the things that we do a lot for our clients is they will invest in the traditional printed letter for the first ask, but instead of sending a second reminder through the mail like they used to many years ago, now they're turning those reminders into email solicitations instead, to save on printing, to save on postage. And of course, this only works if you have people's email addresses. So that's something to consider, that you want to look into that to improve your donor database with collecting their email addresses as best you can. One of the things that you can do to boost online giving is to add, an email signature for your team to make sure that there's a little graphic there, a button that people can click on to go and give. Obviously, adding it to your website, having an online giving page that's attractive, and not neglecting the thank you after the donation. We're very used to these generic thank yous that really kind of kill the mood when you've been, you're feeling good, you made a donation, and then the thank you is like really transactional. And then the honeymoon's over. It's like you were feeling great that you gave, but then you just feel like another number. So I really encourage organizations to think about writing a very sincere thank you in your automated messages through your donation platform. And also having a really good thank you email that can be followed up once people have given. And those thank yous, like as quickly as you can get them out, the better. If you're a small organization and you don't have a lot of bandwidth, you can maybe look into some automations that can be set up. Technology has come a long way to help us with those things. And of course, don't forget your social media. So, adding your campaign theme to your Facebook cover, your Twitter background, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, or whatever other platforms you're on. Those are all really great opportunities for you to, again, get the messaging out to a larger audience that isn't in your database, but who also need to be made aware that you are in fundraising mode at the end of the year. The also mentioned here is, Facebook ads, just if you've never done online advertising before and you're not too sure what to do, even just throwing, $5 or $10 a day can make a difference. You can land some new donors or get somebody who's received the letter but didn't take action when it came in the mail. Then maybe they got the email reminder and then they see something on Facebook and then they finally say, okay, I'll give. So you really have to hit them up that many times before you can convert them. So don't be shy to pay for some Facebook ads and see if that's a good audience for you to reach for your organization. I mentioned the importance of, what happens when you've converted somebody who used to give to you the old-fashioned way and now they're giving online. Well, you really want to make sure that you create a better online experience. So there's a couple of things that you can try. If you're feeling brave, you can just change up your homepage for a month or a week when you're at the height of your campaign. Have a pop-up window, something that, you know, tells the world that you are in fundraising mode, that you're in your year-end campaign, and that shares the concept of your campaign and the reason why you need the money. You know, have a compelling call to action to support your year-end campaign. You can still keep your regular menu along the top, but if you swap out the usual content with, you know, these items that are listed here, having a really good impactful image, a good case for support, using donor-centric language. So please don't use programming language. Make sure it's written in a way that the donor can really understand what the money is needed for, and having clear and obvious call to action to give, brightly colored donate button, that is a must, and really giving maybe some suggested giving levels. You know, not everybody thinks about, oh, how much is a good amount to give? You want to start out with some ranges. I know a lot of organizations who haven't even updated their giving levels for many, many years, and they're still starting at like $15 a minimum gift. I mean, today that barely covers the, you know, the processing fees. So look at, you know, upping your giving levels, especially around the holiday season when we know people are more generous. And then don't forget to have a mailing address or a phone number for people who want to give offline. And that's still, people will come to your website to find that information. So just try to make it as easy as possible. Again, we want to remove any barriers possible, make it as easy to give to you as you can. So I recently gave a webinar on improving online donation experience for Boodle AI. So the link will be available when you get the PDFs of these slides, and you can check it out as a good follow-up to this webinar. So according to statistics, the average open rate for nonprofits in 2020 was about 25% for emails. And so unless your open rate is 100%, you can assume that your donors aren't reading every email you send. I know that you're terrified of hounding your donors, but really, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe they unsubscribe. That's okay. If they weren't really into you anyways, like, it's fine. They're not going to give to you if they weren't into you anyways. So it's better to have a smaller list of people who genuinely care about your cause than a large list of passive non-donors, right? So you want to make sure that your email comes from an actual email. Try to avoid info@ or communications@. You know, really try to put the name of a person or something a little bit more catchy on there, and definitely spend time crafting a strong subject line. And if you're not feeling crafty and clever, then, you know, hire professionals who know how to write them. There's a lot of free resources online if you need to do it on your own. All you have to do is just Google how to write a compelling email subject line, and you will get a ton of resources. Donate today or give generously as your subject line is not going to cut it. Something like Samantha's life changed overnight, or Mark will never forget October 9th, 2020. Like those kind of things incite curiosity. It sets the stage for great storytelling. So you want a subject line that will have the reader saying, you know, like, tell me more. I'm curious. I want to click. I want to go further. Also, you know, please keep in mind to choose a mobile-friendly template for your email. You want to avoid any templates that look wonky on mobile. You know, like templates that have multiple columns and things like that. That can get pretty messy. So test your emails on different devices before they go out. That's really important. And like I said, you know, be bold, be brave, try to send out multiple messages if you can craft them ahead of time and get them all lined up to send. The big organizations are really aggressive at the end of the year, and they will send multiple emails in the last few days of the year. So you could give it a try, see what happens, and always create that sense of urgency as we get closer and closer to December 31st. Yeah, so sending more, you know, this is where you can send, a holiday greeting that, encourages just feeling good, not a hard ask in that, but just staying top of mind. Like I said, keep it friendly and mobile friendly, especially because we know that so many people are checking their emails on the go these days. Don't forget your own emails. Speaking of emails, your email signature can be a really powerful call to action. So, think about what you can do to just create a little graphic, give it to the whole team so they can all load it onto their email signature. And one of the most clever things that I've seen recently is using your out of office notification as a way to solicit donations as well. This was really clever. I saw it around the holiday season last year. I emailed somebody and their out of office said, I'm away until such and such a date, but you can, if you want to help us out, make a donation online by clicking here. And I thought, wow, what a waste of an out of office notification for charities when we generally just put the regular, I'll be back on such and such a date, and we put the contact information for emergency, whatever. But hey, why not ask, right? Just another opportunity, another touch point. And it might have the same effect as it had on me, which it caught me a bit off guard, and it was certainly memorable. And so, that can be a really great way to also get some extra donations that may not have come in otherwise. So recycling, we talked about, what can you guys do if you're really last minute? You don't have to create a new end of year fundraising campaign every single year. You can save some time and some money by reusing some prior high performing campaigns, by maybe just making a few updates to a prior campaign, swapping out a story, swapping out a photo. We know that you don't have a lot of time. We know that, you don't have a lot of resources. So, think of possibly reusing something that's been successful in the past, or just take the recipe from that successful campaign and see how you can reproduce it. That's a really great way to cut some corners if you have to, when you're running late. In terms of other activities that are happening as the year closes, some of you may know that I'm a long-standing volunteer for the Giving Tuesday movement, and your organization can benefit from the global momentum created by Giving Tuesday to draw attention to your cause. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Giving Tuesday, it's a day of generosity that was created in reaction to Black Friday and Cyber Monday as a way to counter all the consumerism that kicks off and the giving season, countering with the buying season, right? So this year, Giving Tuesday falls on Tuesday, November 29th, and you can join a local civic group or an interest group, or just sign up at Giving Tuesday, either givingtuesday.ca if you're in Canada, or the .org if you're in the US. And even if you're really last minute getting your year-end ask organized, riding that Giving Tuesday wave could be just the thing that you need to make some noise and pull something together on short notice. And as we know, Giving Tuesday, a lot of the campaigns are, happening all online, maximizing social media, getting that visibility. So it's an opportunity for another matching gift idea. It's another way to create a lot of engagement on social media, and just being part of a bigger activity around giving than just your organization. So those are some things to take into consideration. So as I promised, I wanted to leave some time for some discussions. So please don't be shy to reach out if you have any questions. You can find me on LinkedIn, email. I'm going to drop a great reference in the chat in just a second so that you can look at this toolkit from Blackbaud that was a great resource, and I'll make sure to drop that in the chat in a sec. We also share a ton of advice for nonprofits on our blog and our social media channels, so be sure to check those out and sign up for our newsletter to get some more great information. So thanks, everybody, and let's open it up for some questions and comments. Rena, do we have anything from the chat?
Yeah, so one thing that people are always asking us is really about how to make their direct mail pieces more creative. So if you could talk to that a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah. It's always funny when people ask a creative team, how can I be more creative? And it's like, well, okay, we actually are professionals who do that for a living. And that's why you hire us to do this kind of stuff. But if you can't hire professionals to get creative, like I said, a quick 1 hour meeting with your team. Try not to just do it in a silo, really open it up, even speak to past donors to try and get an idea of like, why did you give to us, and what, just try to come up with some ideas, but you can't just do that in a vacuum. You've got to open up the conversation and stimulate that conversation so that some good ideas can come out of it. And sometimes, we've seen some of our smaller clients, hire us and then we get them a strong enough strategy and a strong enough understanding for their first mail that then they're able to kind of sustain it and do more independently in future years. And we're always really proud when we can see our clients kind of gain more autonomy that way. But being creative, like if it's not your strong suit, then build that into your budget. And reach out to creative folks who can help, because there's nothing more frustrating than trying to, get creative when you really just don't have that skill set in-house. Anybody else?
I have one, Kim. Could you
Yeah.
maybe tell us what are some examples of really bad year-end asks that you've seen? Like, what should we avoid?
Like I said, most of the ones that I consider to be bad are the ones where you can really sense that there was very little thought put into it, that, it's either just doesn't look good. It either goes on forever and ever and ever, and it's 4 pages long and you're like, I don't have time to read this, or it's too thin and it's just, doesn't compel me to give, right? The other bad examples I would say are, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people insert all sorts of like free stuff, which is terrible for the environment, and it just looks like you're spending donors' dollars on gimmicks like pens and notepads. And I still get, those return address labels, and I'm like, I can count on one hand how many envelopes I've actually mailed out of my household in this year. So, those aren't really going very far anymore. And it goes back to what I said about really understanding who your donors are. What do you know about them? Are they young? Are they old? Are they this? Are they that? The more you know about them, the better you can tailor your messaging and get the right style that you need for your letter. And maybe you have, 3 or 4 different versions of one letter that goes out to your 3 or 4 different segments. But anything you can do to personalize it and make it more relevant to the reader, that's the sweet spot. Peggy, I saw that you came on camera for a sec. Did you have a question for us?
I just wanted to say that thank you so much for this, because I have a lot of experience in fundraising, but this is not my particular experience. And I do this for the CHP Foundation annual stuff, and have very little time to do it. So these are great tips for if you don't have time in particular, like what you can do. The question I had was about Giving Tuesday. Sometimes I feel it's overwhelming. I know that you're a fan, and I know a lot of people are, and I know that there's evidence to show that there are gifts coming in. But and this is very particular to me, but the foundation, we're writing to people who work in charities.
Yeah.
So they're already overwhelmed by the fact that it is Giving Tuesday for them. Would you suggest I do it or don't do it?
Well, it's not for everybody, and it's not necessary that it be tied to your year-end mailing. It can be a standalone digital campaign, and that's where it starts and ends. It really, again, like I said, goes back to knowing your audience, and if there is that feeling of overwhelmedness, then maybe that isn't the right approach, or you can just call it out and say, isn't this a crazy time? Like, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But that's why our campaign is even more special, because we're doing this, and so you can put a bit of a spin on it to work in your favor. But yeah, just because all of these things are available to us doesn't mean they all have to be put into action. It's better to do a few things and do them really well than try to spread yourselves too thin. And again, like, people will pick up if it's not genuine.
Yeah.
Right. So if you just kind of show up and you're like, oh, we're just trying to milk the Giving Tuesday thing for whatever we can, the donors will pick up on that.
I think so.
You want to make sure there's a good connection there.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. I see that we've got Rachel and Pina who are on the line from the charity perspective. Do you guys have any insights or reflections from your own campaign experience that you'd like to share?
Well, first, Kim, me too, I'd like to say thank you. It was a good refresher course, and I did pick up one or two things that I'm excited to try in our end of year campaign. I think for us, being a small organization, one of our challenges has been to really segment our audience. And it's something we've been trying to work on. And I really think we need to put more emphasis on that as well. I don't have any other insights, but to agree with you on all the gimmicks that I also received in really huge envelopes. I've received aprons, calendars, recycling bags. And it really turns me off. And I'll be also honest with you, some of the direct mail that I also receive on a personal level, I find are starting to look too commercial and really sound fake. Like when you use my name 10 times in I just find it's fake. And I think we need to spend a little bit more time, perhaps with our teams as well, but we need to structure our messages a bit different. Now, this is coming from a charitable point of view, but also from someone who also other organizations. So we try to make our newsletter that we sent out twice a year a little bit like more personalized as well. And it's sent out to our, to our recurring donors. And since last year, we're also trying to re-engage with lapsed donors by using some of the suggestions you were mentioning, like, we've missed you this past year. This is what we've done. We hope that we can have you back into our family. So I think it's just we run out of time and we sometimes don't have all the necessary resources. So
no, it's good that you picked up on that overuse of personalization, because it feels very salesy and kind of robotic to so just because we have all of these amazing tools that we can use for personalization through clever programming of our databases and things like that doesn't mean that we should over indulge. And so we're already at the end of our hour, and I want to leave you guys a few minutes to grab a coffee or whatever before you have to rush off to your next engagement. So thanks so much for joining us today. It was really great to be able to share just a few of these tips. Hope it helps you with your year-end asks. And like I said, don't be shy, reach out if you have any more questions, and we hope to see you at the next webinar.